Hello. So for the next 2 weeks, I am going to be sharing with you very common Montessori myths, and I want to debunk them for you. So I'm Stephanie. If you don't already know me, I am a very passionate Montessori mom of 5. I homeschool our kids. Would have loved to have sent them to a local Montessori school. Things didn't work out that way, and I was so convinced of the method that we decided to homeschool instead of sending our kids to a traditional public school. And I have run the gamut of different ways to run Montessori at home, but I want to start out with one that a myth that I hear very often, and that is the idea that Montessori schools are not a rigorous education. And I actually had a friend say this to me once, that, Montessori is great, but at some point children need to learn how to read. As if she was implying that Montessori children just play and that they don't do any real work and that they're not actually getting any academic learning. So there's a good amount of research out there to show that Montessori children do very well compared with traditionally educated children, and there's actually a lot of growing body of data that shows Montessori educated children outperform traditionally educated children. So one such research was done in Hartford, Connecticut, and they wanted to compare how children did in a traditional school versus a Montessori school. So it was a lottery system. So they had very wealthy children and very poor children attending, the Montessori schools, and very wealthy children and very poor children attending traditional schools, and even children in Head Start. And so they did the study with kindergartners. Let me scroll up to some of these highlights. It's done in 2017. And they studied 140 students at the start of preschool. And they looked at three different achievement scores. The 70 students who went to Montessori schools advanced more rapidly on math and literacy tests over the course of 3 years. At the end of kindergarten, when the study ended, Montessori kids had significantly higher achievement. Now, as we would expect, they found that children whose parents had higher income did better when compared with the children whose parents had lower income. So like in the Montessori school, the more well-off children did better. And in the public school, that was also true. But Montessori outperformed completely with the traditional schools. Now, things like problem-solving, executive function, and creativity, all of that sort of stuff was found to be the same. Like there was nothing statistically significant by these researchers. So I'm not a public school teacher. I'm not a school teacher. I am not trained as a teacher at all. But what I have noticed about Montessori is that there's like a very holistic approach to their academic development. And I'm not sure, like I'll put it this way. I went to public school, and I feel very much that I learned how to do the system. And so I was learning to achieve grades, and I personally was motivated by like approval. And I'm not saying that everyone is, but I learned how to work the system versus when I'm educating my children at home. Some days they're more interested than not, and that's true of kids in regular schools as well. But when the information comes together for a child that's been educated in this Montessori way, in the philosophy, whether or not there are all of the materials available to them that there would be in a Montessori classroom, it's like the light bulb. And that's what I actually personally love so much about Montessori, is that it's not, I'm going to start a fire to help my child like really love to learn to love, love to learn. The Dr. Montessori believed that is innate in all human beings, and she often refers to like the man is within the child, like, and by man she means the adults. It's like the default masculine pronoun in the language from 100 years ago, and also translated from Italian. But she believed that spark of life is in every individual, and that it's there at birth, and then either a human child is put into conditions in which that fire is like stoked and encouraged, or it's snuffed out. And this is why I personally, one of the many reasons I should say I personally love Montessori so much, is because it is very, very holistic. And like the research shows that this holistic approach to education results in higher achievement in these measurements that we're very obsessed with in our culture, math and literacy. And of course, like, I'm very interested in my children being literate. I'm very interested in literacy and reading and all of the doors that literacy, opens up to. And I actually love that I'm getting to understand and enjoy math when I always hated it my whole life, because I felt like I just couldn't grasp it. I was like, every time it would be so close and then I would just fall behind. And I love that this holistic approach not only is exciting for me personally, but I can see those light bulb moments going off, and it's not me teaching the child my great knowledge. It's my child discovering for themselves because I've provided an environment where they can learn that information. So that is the first myth I want to debunk. Montessori is not rigorous. That is a total myth. Montessori is a has been proven to be very high achieving academic environment for children from as young as preschool, where we would say that academic achievement's not even important for a preschooler. But as we go through the educational system, it becomes more important for different reasons. But all the way through, from primary to lower elementary to upper elementary and even into junior high, Montessori students do very well compared with traditionally educated peers. If you have more questions or myths that you've heard of that you want me to talk about, comment. I'm going to cover 10 of them. So this week and next week, I'm going to talk about those 10. But if there are other ones that you have questions about, I'd be happy to look into them and see what the research says.